Coming up on iOS today, Rosemary Orchard and I are idling. It's time to look at idle apps and games to help you pass the time. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is iOS Today, episode 626, recorded Tuesday, November 1st, 2022. Idle apps and games. This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by 8 Sleep. Good sleep is the ultimate game changer, and the pod is the ultimate sleep machine. Go to 8sleep.com/iOS to check out the pod and save $150 at checkout. 8 Sleep currently ships within the USA, Canada, the UK, and select countries in the EU and Australia. And by Nureva. Nureva has simplified everything about meetings and classroom audio. You get great audio and systems that are easy to install and manage. Visit nureva.com/twit and get 50% off one Nureva HDL 300 system for mid-size rooms when you get a live online demo and buy before December 16th, 2022. Welcome back to iOS Today, the show where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, iPadOS, HomePodOS, watchOS, and every OS in between. This is the show to help you get everything you could possibly want out of your Apple devices by talking about features on those devices, by talking about apps you should check out for those devices, by discussing subscription services that you should subscribe to. It's very exciting. I am one of your hosts, Micah Sargent.
And I am Rosemary Orchard. And I believe, Micah, there are no tricks this week, just treats, right?
It's all treats this week. Rosemary, your whole outfit is delightful. For folks who are not watching but are instead listening, can you please tell us about you've got the makeup going, you've got the very cool, I don't know if it's a blouse or a dress, but yeah, tell us what you're wearing. It's amazing.
This is dress, actually. I believe one of our listeners, watchers, Tiffany, messaged me about this actually on Instagram, because I posted a picture of this dress last week. So this is a 50s style sort of rockabilly dress with, it's a black dress with cartoon spiders, webs, pumpkins, bats, and little grim reapers all over it. And I have, of course, coordinated my eyeshadow orange to match the pumpkins, which is working surprisingly well. And I feel it clashes perfectly with my purple hair. And I've actually still got a temporary tattoo on that I've got from a friend's birthday party this weekend as well, just to complete the outfit. So I've got some yarn on my arm, which I feel ties into what we're talking about today, Micah, because one of the things that I do when, I'm just wanting something to do that's not particularly brainy is I'll pick up some knitting and throw on a TV show, but there's plenty of games that we can talk about that help you, do something whilst you're in that kind of mood as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many different apps and games that are perfect for idle time, but we are kind of highlighting a few that either we use or think are well worth checking out. So Rosemary, why don't you tell us about the first two, which I believe have been at some point mentioned in the past. So that speaks well to the your enjoyment or continued use of these specific apps.
Yeah, so Nonogram and Nonogram Color, and I'm going to demonstrate the color one today, are just some of the my favorite apps to play with while I'm, just sitting there on my iPad or my iPhone. So I tend to play this on my iPad, and I'll pick up my Apple Pencil, and I'll usually just hold my iPad in portrait mode for this. But I'll continue playing on easy mode, which is not that easy. So if you've played Sudoku before, you kind of get the idea. If you've looked at Sudoku, then you get the idea for this. And what it is you've got a grid. And you need to fill in the gaps in the grid. Now, there are some crosses already on the grid telling you where you are not going to put things, and then you can fill everything else in with colors. So at the very beginning, you'll have a very small grid that's sort of 3 by 3 or so, and it gets progressively harder as you go. So I'm on level 88 right now, which is giving me 4 grids of 5 by 5 together. So that's 10 by 10, which is 100 squares to fill in. And what I have to do is I have to try and figure out what colors are going to go where. So in the first column, there should be, or it shows me a little red sort of capsule with 2 in it and a pink capsule with 1 in it. I already have a pink, which means that underneath that, there's not going to be anything. So I can tap on the X and I can just sort of cross out the bottom of that row, which shows me now the pink one is sort of faded out, which means that there's not going to be anything at the bottom. And in the next row, I've got 1 orange and 2 brown. So I can see that there's only 3 gaps in this row and there are 2 together at the bottom. So it's going to have to be the brown for that. And then the orange is going to have to go in the other gap. And this works vertically and horizontally. So as I've done this, I can also see in the bottom row that my first 1 singular brown has already been crossed out, which, solves that starts that row off quite nicely. And in my 5th row going down, I've got 1 pink and 2 orange already crossed out, meaning that I need to figure out what I'm doing with the rest, which is 1 pink, 2 blue, and a pink again. So I guess I'll have to figure that out, but I'll come back to that later and actually solve it. But I just find this is a very enjoyable app for problem solving. It does have hints and tips. It does have ads, and you can pay to get rid of those ads. But I like the fact that there are a couple of versions of this game. There's black and white and there's color. The pictures that you create are quite abstract because it is very pixel art style. But it's nice and fun to solve the problem. And I find that it's less for my brain than Sudoku. So it comes on iPhone and iPad, which is lovely. I really enjoy it. I've forgotten how much the in-app subscription is, but I believe there's an in-app subscription for getting rid of the ads. It's a one-time in-app purchase of $4.99 to get rid of those ads, which explains why I'm not remembering a subscription. So there we go. But I personally really enjoy both of these games. They're lots of fun and highly recommend them.
Absolutely. I remember you talking about these before, and I had to go get both of them because they're not so challenging that you sort of feel defeated in putting a little bit of your mind on them while you're doing other things. And so, it's that perfect amount of challenge where it's a bit engaging, but not so much so that it takes over everything else. The next app that I want to talk about is an app for iOS for iOS and iPadOS. And it's a little bit of an idle game, but it's important to understand that it does require you to be running the game in order for it to do what it's meant to do, what it's designed to do. So it is idle in the sense that you could sort of pop it open and noodle on things. But in order for it to properly create the items that you're trying to make, and I'll explain that in a moment, you do need to have the game running. So this is a game called Builderment. It is available for free in the App Store. It has in-app purchases for some different kinds of boosts and things that you can use, but it has been my experience that you can absolutely play this game without ever digging into any boosts or anything like that. It will still play. And the point of this game is to essentially create items. Your job is to take some land and then build out a fab facility, a facility that creates items that then come together to create more items that then come together to create more items. And as it's running, then you are making money. So you start the game with this hub in the middle of you get to choose where you want to put it. So you put the hub wherever you'd like to. And it is in charge of sort of selling the products that you make. So the goal is to get the items that your different fab facilities are creating to this central hub and thereby let you make money so that you can buy other things to make those. And you'll see that you have conveyor belts, these little gray areas, or these little gray sort of triangular things here are underground conveyor belts. So you can put them within, I think it's like 3 squares of an item, and then it will let you get what you need across some different conveyor belts. But I will pop into the research area, and this will show you kind of how it starts. So whenever you start out, you have the central hub. You can then make a basic wood plank. From there, you use a wood plank to create wooden frames. And then from there, you can make a smelting oven. And then it kind of branches out from there to all sorts of new items. So as you can see, it's been a long time since I started playing this game. And since that point, then lots more technology has been added, but I've also unlocked a lot of technology. So over time, I've improved my extractors such that they are much faster at removing ore from the ground, and my conveyor belts are incredibly quick. But the way that you get kind of to the next level is by creating certain items. So here, in order to upgrade my conveyor belts, I would need to get 100,000 iron gears and 50 earth tokens, which I have not yet created the earth token. So that is still something that's locked for me. But right now, for example, I've got, I'm trying to think of my most complex item that I've created, because if you could see here, I have, you have to take ore from the different places that it exists in the ground. So, for example, I've got iron ore all the way over here, or excuse me, it's I think this is not carbon, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I've got this ore over here, and all of these little extractors are constantly working to remove that ore, and then it gets passed along this conveyor belt all the way through to my main facility, where it starts being used eventually for the different things that it can create. So it's going to all of these different fab facilities that create different items. And these ones are frozen right now because I needed to repurpose some of my other buildings for other things. I think I was trying to make copper coils, for example. And I think I've got a supercomputer working. But you can see, you can really put a lot of time into this game and a lot of design thought into this game, which makes it, for me, a lot of fun. And when I zoom out, you can see the ridiculous network I've created over time to try and get to the next phase and stage of the game. And so, yeah, it can be challenging. It can be a lot of fun. And what I enjoy about it is how sometimes you have to, after you've created, this perfect facility, you realize, oh, I could make this so much more efficient, and I could improve my track design by doing this and that. And I started to realize a better way of getting multiple items into one area. So over time, I started to slowly change and upgrade my facility. So it can get very complicated, but in the best way. And I find it to be a really fun game to just kind of let, noodle on whenever you've got other things going on. And once you get it going, then you're good to go. So that is Builderment. As I mentioned, free to download. The in-app purchases can boost the game to give you the ability to kind of speed up production. But even those boosts that you buy can be eventually, you can make items that give you what the boosts would give you by paying within the game. So if you play long enough, then you'll get these trees, for example, that have the little crystals in them that you use to speed up production. So it's very easy to just play this game for free. But I suggest, if you really get into this game, buy a boost or two just to support the developer of the game. I think they've done a fantastic job and made a really fun game that is, for the most part, sort of an idle game. All right, Rosemary, tell us about your next one before we take a break.
Well, the next one is not actually intended as one of these apps at all. It's called Affirmations. And Affirmations is designed to just basically tell you nice things. But Affirmations can, of course, do more than just this. It'll have widgets on your home screen and so on. But what I really love is something that's buried in the settings. So if you just tap on the settings area, then you'll see, obviously, there's a whole bunch of other things. But there's also a breathe section where you breathe along with the dot, which is quite nice. But what I really love is this fidget section. Have you ever just wanted to be able to tap on a bunch of things and get haptic feedback from them and play with them? Well, guess what? This is something that you can do in this section of the app. And I just think that this is a lovely little touch, like sliding your finger up and down one of these pickers gives a really lovely sort of vibration feel on your phone as you do it. And similarly, you get a different kind when you're sliding your finger across the various sliders. And I should note that you actually get different feedback on each of these. Even if there's multiples of them, you'll actually get different feedback. So it's quite fun just to play with what different settings and so on are available. But I also really love the fact that it's just hiding there in the app. So if I just want to do something with my hands for a little bit, I can do that.
That is awesome. I didn't realize it had that built into it. All right. Well, I think it is time to take a quick break, and I am excited to tell you about 8 Sleep, who are bringing you this episode of iOS Today, literally and figuratively, because I slept on my 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover last night into this morning. So without it, I wouldn't be here ready to go this morning. Look, good sleep is the ultimate game changer. And frankly, the pod is the ultimate sleep machine. Consistent good sleep can help reduce the likelihood of serious health issues. It can decrease the risk of heart disease. It can lower blood pressure, and it can even reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. Yet still more than 30% of Americans struggle with sleep. And this is the big thing. Feeling hot at night is one of the main causes of poor sleep. I can confirm. I used to sleep so hot that I would wake up in the middle of the night just miserable. And it was just, you can't sleep whenever you have to wake up in the middle of the night and throw the covers off of you, take a breather, stand up, walk around, maybe get some cold water, all sorts of things to try to make that work. And with my Pod Pro cover that 8 Sleep sent my way, I can stay asleep through the night and it's not an issue, which is just magnificent. I get to fall asleep in record time now, faster than ever before, and it is because of that 8 Sleep pod. See, 8 Sleep offers the only sleep technology that dynamically cools and heats each side of the bed, so you get optimal sleeping temperature for what your specific body needs. It pairs dynamic cooling and heating with biometric tracking. So it is paying attention to how you sleep and what stage of sleep you are in and how your body responds to the temperature of the bed while you're sleeping to make subtle adjustments to help you stay asleep as you need to or wake up or whatever it happens to be. It's just incredible. It's sleep science made manifest and put to the best use possible. And I can't say enough about how cool that is not a pun, but it could be. The pod cover is. And with that pod cover, you can add it to any mattress and start sleeping as cool as 55 degrees Fahrenheit or as hot as 110 degrees Fahrenheit. I like to have it get hot as I wake up so that it makes me get out of bed because I don't want to stay in the bed in that sort of old way of being kind of miserable waking up in the middle of the night. And what happens whenever you do have this technology at your disposal? Well, clinical data shows that 8 Sleep users experience up to a 19% increase in recovery, up to 32% improvement in sleep quality, and this is huge, up to 34% more deep sleep, one of the most important stages of sleep, the stage that is the most restorative. With more deep sleep, that means you can have confidence about your mind and body moving through those restorative sleep stages, the very important stages that repair. And these stages are vital for physical recovery, for hormone regulation, for mental clarity, and it gets better, folks. 8 Sleep recently launched the next gen version of the pod. The new Pod 3 enables more accurate sleep and health tracking with double the amount of sensors delivering you the best sleep experience on Earth. I've really got to get my hands on the Pod 3. The Pod, it's not magic, but it certainly feels like it. It sincerely does. It's kind of incredible. I wish I could, I don't know, have my Oprah moment of getting one of these into everyone's hands. You get a pod and you get a pod because it's magnificent. So go to 8sleep.com/iOS to sleep cozy this fall and save $150 at checkout. Yes, we can get you that good deal of $150 at checkout savings on the pod. 8Sleep currently ships within the USA, Canada, the UK, and select countries in the EU and Australia. That's 8sleep.com/iOS. All right, we are back from the break, and that means it is time to talk about more idle apps and games. The next one I want to talk about is another one in the sort of building style, but this is a little bit more about resource collection. It's called Moon Pioneer, and it is also available for free with in-app purchases to kind of boost your game. But the sort of style of this game is, or the story of this game is that you are an astronaut who is tasked with sort of creating the resources needed to get to the next planet that you were trying to visit. So you start out in a rocket ship and you touch down. And once you touch down, your goal is to gather the necessary resources to fuel your rocket and get your people to the next area that they're trying to visit. So it starts out where you have I'm 3/4 of the way through this level. So I've already got a lot of my resources built and things are being collected. But I will show you when it starts out, you come out of the rocket and you are meant to start to kind of build out these little, I can't think of what they're called now, the things you run on. Why can't I think of the name of that? Treadmill. You create more treadmills that pump energy into the miner here, this gold miner, and it will pull oil out of the ground that you can use to fuel different vehicles, different resources, so that it can go and collect more resources, with the ultimate goal of filling up this resource area. Now, you'll see these creepy little spiders that are coming out of nowhere. Those spiders are constantly trying to steal your supplies while you are trying to gather them. So you have to go around. See, these are all the supplies that the spider has stolen from me. You have to go around and destroy all of those little homes. Oh, there's one. You can zap it to scare it away. But you go around and destroy all of these little holes that they come out of the ground in to kind of protect your people and the resources that you're collecting. And then as you move around, you can go ahead and continue to fill up the rocket. And once these numbers reach 0, then you go to the next area. There are lots of different things. You can upgrade all of the different items that you have. This is like a research desk. So you're giving the scientist the resource that it needs to create the next version, the more powerful version of whatever your tools are. And so by providing as much as I possibly can to the scientist, then I can upgrade my miner to make it mine oil even faster out of the ground, which gives me the fuel that I need to send this miner over to collect those resources that it needs. And right here you can see this is I think another solar panel spot. So let me start to fill that up after I take these over to my research scientist. And then you can kind of get an idea of what that looks like. So we'll pass these along. Good. Now I don't need to worry about that anymore. We're all full up there. Let's see, what else does this one need? It needs 24 oil. And I'm going to turn off the cart so that it doesn't continue to take oil to the rocket, because if it does, then I'm just wasting that oil. So I'll pass these over here so that the miner can use that. And I need to go over to my plastics and grab, it looks like, that's because I didn't have the conveyor belt on. So it hasn't been able to make plastic because I did not have the conveyor belt set as it needed to be. And it can pretty much make plastics at this level at the speed which you pass it, what you need to. So here, this is the last thing I'll show, which is just filling this up. So now you can see it needs some crystals, which you get by zapping these giant crystals until they are just small little bits like that. So I've got 6 of them so far. I will continue to add to my collection. I need 20 in total, but I may run out of space here. We'll see if I've got enough to carry all that I need on my back. Okay, it looks like I can. Then we'll come over here and finish filling that up. And there's another boost. So look, now I've got another solar panel. I could start to fill out this one as well. And then I can fill up that solar panel and be able to continue to make the main area work even faster. So this is another game that doesn't require a whole lot of thought. You just kind of move your little character around to different areas, collect resources, and continue to move on to the next planet and the next planet and the next planet. That, again, is called Moon Pioneer, available for free in the App Store. All right, Rosemary Orchard, tell us about your next idle app or game.
Well, my next one is kind of 2 of them bundled together because I'm cheating. But something that was recently added to Apollo for Reddit and then came out as a separate application is this great little thing called Pixel Pals. Pixel Pals, the idea of those is they're little pals who live above the dynamic island on your device, which if my device were showing something on my screen, then that would be more helpful. So Pixel Pals can be in Apollo for Reddit and they can show up up there, and you've got a choice of a cat called Hugo, a dog called Rupert, a hedgehog called Chortley, a fox called Finnegan, and several others, including something that looks kind of like a pig, an otter, and a bat. And I really love these little guys. They're very cute, and you can interact with them as well. So you can feed your Pixel Pal. When you actually tap on them, then you get choices. So you can, give them food. You get to give them a choice of things, maybe some sushi, some steak, carrot, watermelon, blueberries, corn. I'm going to go with steak. Hugo, the cat, really appreciates those. And you can also, when you tap on your Pixel Pal, change it or play with it. So there's a beacon ball where you can give it like a little ball of yarn and it'll chase it. This was so popular that Christian, the developer of Apollo, has made Pixel Pals into its own separate standalone app, which is available for free for you to get from the App Store. And the beauty of the Pixel Pals app is you can also then have your Pixel Pal as a widget. And not only that, you can have them as a live activity. So if I just pop open Pixel Pals, then I can actually show you how that works, which is, just a little neat trick basically to just show have your Pixel Pal showing up. I've now completely and utterly forgotten how this works, but I certainly had the Pixel Pal showing up the other day. There we go, Hugo the cat, there he is. And so when I tap on him, of course, he comes back here, but it means that when I swipe out of an app, for example, Pixel Pals, then I've got Hugo little dancing up here. And if I if I tap and hold on that dynamic island, then I can actually interact with it, and I can, for example, play with him and play the follow the wand game where you can move the wand across the screen and Hugo will run across the dynamic island and try and catch it. And I just think that this is fun. It's silly. There's nothing particularly crazy about it, but you know what? This is the sort of thing that makes some apps a joy to use, and it's certainly great at providing a little bit of entertainment here and there. I have to say, Micah, I've been playing with live actions and notifications on the lock screen a bit over the weekend, and oh my gosh, are they great. This is a fun example of how you can use them, but they also do have a lot of utility as well, such as flight tracking and so on. So it's really great to see developers taking advantage of this.
Yay! I agree. Anytime those new tools are being used, it's always a celebration. The next one that I want to mention is, I think, a long time, well-known app, but it is an excellent idle app. It is Pigment. that is available. I think it's best on iPad, but you can also get it on iPhone if you'd like. And it is the coloring book app. So here I've got Pigment pulled up on my iPad. And let's go to the fall options. You get a lot for free. They do have an in-app subscription. I think it's $9.99 a month. There is a version that's $4.99 a week. I do not recommend that one because, again, that's per week. They're really trying to push you to the $9.99 a month or for the yearly. But whenever you get this, you'll see that there's a diamond next to the premium ones that require the subscription. But any of them that don't have a diamond next to them are able to be tapped upon and colored. So I will choose this first one that looks like a kind of fun decoration that you can then put or draw something in the middle of. So I will tap on color here, and I've got my Apple Pencil. So it is Apple Pencil compatible. And what I love about this is it gives you the ability, you can completely freeform color if you want to, but what I like is that I can not only zoom in and move the canvas about as I want to, but if I tap on an area, it will allow you to just color inside of those areas. So I am going to choose a palette that I think works best for this design, or of course I could go in and do colors individually, but I'm looking for something that feels a little fall-esque, and I think this is it. Oh, those colors. Oh yeah, so Hummingbird, it says requires a subscription. So let's find here we go, Mellow Vibes. So now I will color let's do a light orange on the outside. And I'm using my Apple Pencil right now to color that area. And then I'm going to choose the inside and make that a little darker. And then we'll choose the next slice, color that, and the next one, color that. And at any time, I can go over on the side and change the size of the brush. I can change, I believe this, the opacity of the brush. And then I can switch between erasing, drawing or painting and filling in. And I've tapped on the sort of main brush area, and you can see all of the different versions. So you can color with watercolor, which I think because at one point I paid for this app, that is why I can currently use watercolor. But it is normally a premium brush. So I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. I'm going to leave it on watercolor so that I can continue to use, I can continue to use that. And I've got a little undo button that I can hit as I selected the wrong area. And then we'll color the rest of that. But this is just a very, I think, well-designed app that lets you color or paint or draw whatever you would like. And I find it very zen, very relaxing to use. And I love that it has that selection feature that makes it just a tiny bit simpler to paint within the lines, especially whenever it comes to doing so using a mobile device. So if you are on an iPhone, for example, where you're using your finger to try and color in the different areas, I think that makes it just a little bit simpler, which I think is what makes it all the more enjoyable, because you don't have to put too much thought into what you're doing and instead can just color away with no problem. So that is Pigment, and again, available for free. I think there aren't a whole lot of free options in the library, but enough that you would be able to use it for quite a while before you needed to pay for the subscription. But consider the fact that they have to hire an artist or artists to create these pieces of artwork that you then paint or color in. And so it makes sense that they have a subscription so that they can continue to pay their artists to make these different things and be able to, continue to make the app. So if you're going, why $9.99 a month? That seems like a lot of money. Well, I guess it depends on how much you use it. If you use it regularly and you find that it's stress relieving, then it might be for you. Anything else you want to mention, Rosemary, or are we ready to move on to the news?
I did just want to mention that sometimes actually just playing with my iPad and enjoying it, or similarly my iPhone, and, like finding the new features that you can take advantage of and just experimenting with those can be another great way to pass the time. And it can teach you some things as well. One of the things that I have very much been enjoying this weekend is this great new M2 iPad feature where I'm holding my iPad up in front of the display. And, if I touch the pencil down towards it, then the app icons get bigger. So I'll do that again with my iPad on display. And so hopefully if any folks are watching, then they can see, my pencil's getting closer and the 1Password icon is getting bigger. And I just really love spending a bit of time going through settings, figuring stuff out, trying new things, and seeing what things just sort of capture my attention. Can be a great way to find out some new tips and tricks. Like there is a preference for the iPad Pros, which allows the volume buttons to work the same way as the iPad Mini. So that whichever one is on the, the right-hand side, like if it's in this position, then the one closest to my Apple Pencil right now will be volume up. Whereas if it's in portrait mode, that one then becomes volume down because it's pointing down, unless it's the other way around in portrait mode. So going through finding settings like that, it's a great way to pass the time, and you might teach yourself a few new tricks or learn something that you can write in and share with us in the feedback section. So great way to pass the time.
I love that feature. I've updated all of my iPads so that it does that. It makes sense now. It's the way that I think about it. And so I remember the show iPad that I use, it did not have that setting turned on, and I was getting so confused. And I thought, I need to turn that setting on. That's why it's not working. All right, let's move on to the news. The first thing that I want to talk about is a change that has come to the App Store for iOS. As you are using the iOS App Store, you may soon, if you have not already, notice more ads in more places. Apple has updated, of course, iOS, iPadOS, macOS, and with it came a change where the App Store put ads in more places than you may have seen before. So up to this point, when you did a search, you may come across an ad for an app that has something to do with the search you did, and in some cases has nothing to do with the search that you did. And you may see sponsored content in other places. But now, not only in search, but also whenever you tap on an app, in the part where it kind of suggests other apps like this or more apps for you, you may see ads there. And as this first started to roll out and you saw these additional ads, I want to make it clear, they are all marked with a light blue rounded rectangle that says AD inside of it, ad inside of it, so that you know which ones are ads. And they also are highlighted in a light blue color to separate them from the sort of natural search versus the surfaced ads. But the biggest complaint that people had, because of course, I think anyone or many people are going to complain about ads in general, because a lot of us get tired of having ads. But along with just more ads in more places, I think the bigger conversation surrounded the fact that many of these ads ended up being advertisements for gambling apps, for apps that would potentially cost you money and can cost you money in a big way. And we just, in California, we're in the middle of an election and the midterm elections. And one of the things on the ballot for us in California surrounds online gambling. And that is because online gambling can all gambling can potentially ruin people's lives, but in particular, the ease of online gambling is very, very devastating for some folks, and particularly young folks who have not quite had their brain fully developed yet, who can get sucked into the dark patterns that online gambling provides. So all of that's to say, I'm not surprised to see this reaction to these apps. Apple later, I believe it was on, October 27th, Apple said, we are at this time, quote, but some brackets in here, I'm a little bit paraphrasing, pausing, and then, quote, ads related to gambling and a few other categories on App Store product pages. So the company has, for now, pause means you will hit play again at some point, pause those ads, and we'll see kind of what that looks like going forward, how they will choose what gambling ads make it into the system and which ones don't. But even without those, you will see lots and lots of ads in the App Store, more so than before.
Yeah, and it's just worth being aware that the first thing that pops up in the App Store when you search for something, if it's got a light blue background, this is assuming, of course, that you don't have any of the color accessibility features turned on where you potentially tint your device in one direction or another. But if it's got a different shade in the background, then that is a big hint that that is an ad that somebody has paid for. So if you're looking for a specific app, then don't necessarily tap on the first one, scroll down. And if you're looking for something by a particular name, it will often be that second result, which is the first search result, but it's not the first thing that shows up in the search. So just be aware of that. And fingers crossed they sort out the large amount of gambling apps that appear to have popped up with all of those ads. I'm not pleased to see things like that popping up, especially when you're searching for something very much unrelated to it. Like various different mental health apps have discovered that gambling ads are appearing when they've been searching for that, which is one of the reasons why Apple's hit pause. So fingers crossed that gets solved.
Yes, my fingers will certainly be crossed for that. Tell us about an update in the beta, iOS 16.2, regarding Emergency SOS.
Yeah. So Emergency SOS is that feature that you can have, for example, if you fall over and you've got fall detection enabled on your watch, which automatically enables, I believe, for folks over 50, but you can enable it on any Apple Watch, then it will do an emergency SOS. And there's now crash detection built into your iPhone and your Apple Watch, which will do the same thing. If it detects that you're in a car and that car or vehicle has crashed, it will do a countdown and then call the emergency services unless you stop it during that countdown. Now, as everybody knows, these things aren't perfect. How many times have you done something and had your Apple Watch ask you if you were washing your hands and that you need to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds? For me, it pretty much always happens when I'm coiling cables. Emergency SOS has been activating not quite as frequently as hand washing, fortunately, but it's certainly been activating incorrectly for some people. We talked about this a few weeks ago on the show. Some folks were noticing it activating while they were on roller coasters at amusement parks. And so Apple have actually added a reporting option in this new beta to say, hey, if this was an accident, tell us. And I think this is really good. Like figuring out exactly what it is that should trigger this and how it should work is very difficult. I remember I broke my ankle at WWDC and I actually met one of the engineers who'd worked on the fall detection software. And she was very excited to ask me some questions, obviously very sympathetic that I'd injured my ankle. But she really wanted to ask me questions because it got to the point when they were testing it where she said, you're not supposed to be able to trigger it on purpose. So it got really difficult, which is really good to hear in many ways. And so she was asking me a couple of questions about that, which was good. But obviously, Apple are always looking to fine tune this, and they are definitely looking to fine tune the emergency SOS. I suspect that this is a requirement before they roll this out in other countries as well. There's the satellite communication in particular is one where they haven't rolled that out yet. So fingers crossed they get it sorted and we don't have accidental crash detection on roller coasters anymore.
Yeah. The more data they have, the better they can make use of these features and make them even better. And I think that that has always been the case, always will be the case. So it's the same thing with the hand washing. There's a way to kind of report, this hand washing was not as I expected, with the Apple Watch detecting that. It just makes sense that the more people they can get it in front of, the more they can use those sensors to go, this is the difference between a roller coaster and a car crash, because roller coasters in many ways do resemble the physics of a car crash. So they need that data to be able to determine the difference. So I think it's great. With the next version of tvOS, this is tvOS 16.2, Apple has redesigned the way that Siri looks, but also has added a feature that is common on other Apple devices, the ability for Siri to recognize your voice and understand that it is different from another person's voice. And so your requests are going to regard your data versus someone else's request regarding their data. It's just basically trying to bring all of the devices into parity, because the HomePod Mini are already able to recognize your voice and use that as the way to not only activate the device if you've got AirPods in, but to then act on your specific data. Rosemary, are we going to get a USB-C iPhone?
Yes, we are. And somebody from Apple's marketing department seems to have confirmed this, which is both interesting and good. So EU law has said that basically, so previously EU law said, things that are sold should be following a standard. They shouldn't ship charging blocks unless they need to ship charging blocks. And, the port that things are using really ought to be standardized or close to standardized. And previously it was micro USB, and Apple were able to work around this by saying, cool, here's a cheap adapter that you can buy, which is Lightning to micro USB. So you can use any micro USB cable to charge an iPhone with the special Apple adapter. The European Union has gone, okay, technology is moving on. We are moving from micro USB to USB-C, and we're not doing the adapter thing anymore. You're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to actually put a USB-C port in this thing if you want to charge it, which is good. So all those, little devices that you buy off of Amazon, I happen to have a motion sensor here, which I picked up. It's a Shelly one. Look at that. That's a micro USB port. Well, EU law is saying that from not that far off onwards, everything will have to be USB-C instead, which is good. No more do I plug it in this way or do I plug it in this way? It's all the same way around, unless you try and plug it in portrait into landscape slot. But either way, but Apple have said, yes, we are doing USB-C iPhone, which is not a surprise, really, to be honest. They basically had the option of go USB-C or go portless, because the other option is if there isn't space for it, then you don't have to put a charging port on there. It can just use wireless charging instead, or some other kind of proprietary charger. But yeah, so there's going to be a USB-C iPhone, it seems. So yeah, apparently Joswiak confirmed this during a Wall Street Journal event. So I guess we'll see what happens. It may be the iPhone 15. It may not be the iPhone 15. I would imagine it will be the iPhone 15. Just get ahead of the game, get on with it. And for everybody who's going, oh my God, they're changing ports again. It was over 10 years ago when Apple switched to Lightning. Don't worry. I think we're going to be better off with USB-C.
Want to feel old? The Lightning cord and port are 10 years old. Ugh. Let's move on so that I don't just crumble in front of everyone. So there, of course, I mean, this one's kind of obvious. So Macworld put out a piece says Apple warns that iOS 15, macOS 12 devices could still have known security issues. I just want to say, that is kind of basically everything has security issues, because that's just the nature of the beast. But it's important to understand that when security updates happen, you should absolutely 1000% install them. Even if you don't get fun new emoji and features, always get the latest update and upgrade. It's very important that you do so, and make sure that your devices are locked down as much as you possibly can. Do your research, read up on how to protect yourself and your privacy and your data, and don't download sketchy apps, and just follow all the best practices for the sake of making sure that your devices remain protected. Anything else you want to say about that one?
There is something that was mentioned in the article that I thought was worth pointing out, that sometimes you can't update your OS on your device because you don't have enough storage space. There is usually a workaround for this, which is worth knowing about, where Apple will offload apps and data, for example, the data stored in iCloud, from your devices to free up space so that it can install the update and then it will put them back. And one of the things that you will find that you struggle to do if you don't have enough storage space is that it can't offload data because you've stored it in on my device, for example, on my iPhone or on my iPad. If you are in this position, where you don't have a lot of storage space on your device, you can't afford to upgrade your device, that's fine. I would highly recommend paying for a month of iCloud storage and moving your documents into iCloud. Then, use the offload feature to get and it'll do it automatically, and then re-download them back into On My Device and cancel your iCloud subscription. Ideally, you just put them in iCloud and pay for it every month, but I know not everybody is able to do that. But if you just need, 50 gigabytes of storage space, I think it's still 99 cents for that. And it's certainly cheaper to pay for 1 month of iCloud storage space than it is to upgrade your device. So yeah, if you are struggling to update your device because you don't have the storage space, of course, if you have a Mac, you can plug your device into your Mac and do the update through there. Or if you have a Windows PC, you could use iTunes on that. But aside from that, buy a month of iCloud storage space, put your data in there, and do the update that way. But please do your best to install updates and get updates installed on all of your friends and relatives' devices as well. We all know one person who's a holdout, right? They don't update on time. They're always holding out until the last possible minute. There is not a good reason to avoid a security update. So please try and get everybody to do those updates as soon as possible.
There you go. Well, I believe that so the next versions, of course, of iOS and iPadOS 16, which are 16.2, are out in beta. One of the things that they include is the new Freeform app that Apple had said would come out later this year. We now believe that the next version of iPadOS 16 and the next version of iOS 16 will reach everyday users in December, potentially mid-December. So kind of late in the year, but coming nonetheless. But I think that might mean, Rosemary, that we won't see any new devices the rest of this year. There was kind of talk of new Macs at some point this year, but now it's starting to look like that won't be until early 2023.
Yeah, it's certainly seeming that way, though I have to say Apple did also just release, their latest iPad and so on in a press release rather than doing an event. So it's entirely possible that they may just do a press release, say, next month and release some new Macs, or it may be that they've decided to hold off until next year and see what they can squeeze in that time period. We'll have to wait and see. But as it is, I've been playing with Freeform a little bit, and I have to say, Micah, I'm kind of liking it. It reminds me a little bit of Notability and other apps in some ways, but it's quite nice to just have somewhere where you can make some notes and scribble some stuff out. I was doing some mock-ups for an app in here the other day and really enjoyed how easy it was to use. So I think we're all going to appreciate that when it arrives, and then we'll have to try out the collaboration. Maybe we'll even try it out live on air.
I think we will. That's something I'm looking forward to doing. I want everybody to be able to check out this app whenever it's ready. And Apple is really pushing the collaboration as a main part of this app. That's an important feature that really shows off what collaboration stuff you can do with it. And last but not least, I think a important news announcement. If you have an Apple One subscription, an Apple Music subscription, or an Apple TV Plus subscription, be aware that your prices are increasing. You may have received or will receive an email from Apple that is letting you know that those prices are increasing. For Apple Music, if you've got an individual plan, the plan will go up by $1. If you've got a family plan, the plan will go up by $2. And if you pay not per month, but per year, then the plan will go up by $10 per year. For Apple TV Plus, for the monthly plan, you will see a $2 increase to $6.99 per month and a $20 increase to the annual plan of about $70 per year. Last but not least, Apple One. Instead of $16.95 a month for the individual plan, you'll see a $2 increase to $16.95 a month. The family plan, a $3 increase, and the premium plan, a $3 increase. Those obviously have different features respectively, but in any case, you will see a jump from anywhere from $1 to $3 for the per month options, and $10 to $20 for the year options.
Yeah. Yeah. One of those things, unfortunately, but it's worth checking if you're getting one of these emails and going, oh gosh, right, that's a lot of money, especially if you're on the Apple One plan. Check through the individual parts and see whether or not you're using it. I found for me, still worth it, especially considering the fact that I'm doing the family plan and sharing with my parents, that even if we were going to buy the individual parts that we were going to use, it would still work out cheaper for us to do this. So it's worth going through and just double checking again if you are looking at it going, it's a lot of money, but you'll probably find, or at least I found, I'm saving money by doing this. So worth knowing. And check out, look out for that email from Apple that should be landing in your inbox. It's not spam, unfortunately, it's the truth.
All right, let's take a quick break before we come back with Shortcuts Corner. I want to tell you about Nonogram, who are bringing you this episode of iOS Today. See, today's IT pros are in a tough spot. The shift to hybrid working and learning means that they have to equip and support all sorts of different spaces with audio and video conferencing systems. And at the same time, they're also busier than ever because they've got to work on network security. They've got to work on the shift to cloud-based solutions. They've got to work on infrastructure issues and so much more. These factors, along with product shortages and delays, which we are very well aware of, have put an unprecedented strain on IT resources, on the people, on the time, on the expertise. And you may be familiar with the strain on the budget. It's driven customers to demand intelligent products that require minimal effort from IT to deploy and manage at scale, with the bonus of requiring zero end-user training. When it comes to audio conferencing in larger spaces, it's common to be faced with multi-component systems that have all of this complexity. They're super complicated. They're costly to design. They're costly to install, to maintain, and to continue to manage. All of that just adds up over and over again. Well, Nonogram is here to fix those issues. It's changing that by offering solutions that deliver a high level of simplicity. With Nonogram, you get true full room mic pickup from just one or two microphone and speaker bars. So you're not installing a bunch of things in all these different places. You've got one or two microphone and speaker bars you place in the room, and it can do all of that magic. Now, compare that to the complicated maze of multiple microphones, of speakers, of amps, of DSPs, of switchers, and all the other components involved in a traditional system. You can install a Nonogram system in most spaces in less than 30 minutes. For larger spaces, it may take 60 minutes. But that is, anyone out there who's installed one of the more complicated systems is going, wait, an hour? What? Amazing. It's a super simple and no special expertise is required. Compare that with the installations for traditional systems that can frankly take your room offline for days. And some traditional systems may require you to go from room to room and use complicated software to get it all set up. With Nonogram, you can monitor, you can manage, you can update, and you can adjust all your Nonogram systems from a powerful cloud-based platform called Nonogram Console. Nonogram is very scalable for large organizations, and their systems cost a fraction of the traditional systems. Now, you can get 50% off one Nonogram HDL 300 system for mid-size rooms when you get a live online demo and buy before December 16th, 2022. Visit Nonogram.com/twit. That's NUREVA.com/twit to check out Nonogram. And thank you, Nonogram, for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. Alrighty, we are back from the break and I can hear the music because it's time for Shortcuts Corner. Welcome to Shortcuts Corner, the part of the show where you write in with your shortcuts requests, and Rosemary Orchard, the shortcuts expert, provides a response. All right, we've got a long one from Adrian, but let's get into it. Adrian writes, Dear Rosemary and Micah, thanks for a brilliant show. Hope you're both doing well. Hey, thanks, Adrian. I'm hoping you might be able to help me with a shortcut to batch edit reminders. One of my possible edits is to add tags to the selected reminders. I ask for text input on the desired tags separated by spaces. Then, and by the way, for folks who are listening, Adrian is talking about different actions that you can do with the shortcuts. Then split text and put the add tags action in a repeat with each loop for the split text. The screenshot below might make more sense. So Adrian has provided a screenshot that shows what the action kind of looks like, just to provide context. But what happens is the shortcut only adds the last word entered as a tag. So if I entered work, London, focus as my desired tags, only focus would be added. I thought maybe I needed to convert the split text into a list and repeat with each item in the list, but I'm not sure how to do this, if that's the right approach, or even if it's possible to batch add multiple tags. Any pointers would be hugely appreciated. Rosemary, what's going wrong here? And there's more from Adrian that we'll get to in a moment.
Yeah, so I had a look at Adrian's screenshot that he sent, and it was very useful. And we can probably actually show it up on a screen if that is handy. I did put a link in the show notes, but if not, I have it. And if we zoom in on the red box a little bit, then we'll actually see what is going on. So, you know, what he's doing is when he taps the menu option to add tags to reminders, which is a good idea. You know, this is something that he's built for himself to solve a problem. Asks for text and says, what tags do you want? And then it splits that up and it goes through each one. But there was a little something that I spotted here. So we are repeating with every reminder from the selected reminders right at the top of the shortcut. And then we're repeating with every text item. But there's a little something that I spotted in here, which I think may be the problem. And this is something that happens very easily when you're using shortcuts. And so I can actually just pop up my iPad and I can show you what reminders actions there are. And the one that Adrian is using here is actually the edit reminder action. Okay, so you can add reminders, you can find reminders, you can get the upcoming ones, you can open lists, remove them even. But he's using the edit reminder option. And then if you tap on the detail option, which is the first one, the first empty one. So to start with, there's set, which you can tap on, but it doesn't seem to do much. But when you tap on detail, then you can choose tags, or I could choose tags. There it is. And then I found something here, and it says set the tags of the reminder to value. And I think, based on what I'm seeing in Adrian's screenshot, that what he's accidentally done, which is very easy to do when you're using a repeat action, is he's put the tag in the first bit and the reminder in the second. And I think that that's all it is. It's just got swapped over. So what I will do on my iPad for you folks is I will get some text. And I will just split that on spaces, because that's exactly what he's doing. So there we go. So what we are going to do is we're going to type Micah and Mizzy, okay? And those are going to be our two tags. And so now I've got my tags. I can remove this. And if I do a repeat with each, there we go. And then I just pop in an alert. Then this will show you quite easily what exactly this is. So I'm going to just change that from new lines to spaces. And instead of do you want to continue, that's not the bit that I tapped there. There we go. Instead of do you want to continue, I will just add a variable. There we go. So I just need to add the repeat item, and then we'll see exactly what pops up. So it pops up first of all with Micah, and then the next time it pops up with Mizzy. Okay, but now if I add a repeat, and I'm just going to use a repeat actually here, because this is just a simple way of showing you folks. And then I tap repeat to make that 2 times. this time, when I move my alert inside of this, then what I can do is I've got, so my repeat item, so that is coming from Micah and Mizzy, and then I will use repeat index 2. Okay, and that's the second one inside. So what will actually happen here is when I do repeat, I'll see Micah 1, and then I see Micah 2, and then I see Mizzy 1, and then I see Mizzy 2. And I think it's just that those two got swapped over when he was inputting that. But this is a really good way to experiment with these things. And I really like using the alerts and just trying to copy like little bits out into a separate shortcut so that you can play with that. And I think that that's all you need to do there, Adrian. But let's just add, I will just pop in a new reminder over here. Okay, and let's just do a little test. Okay, so I'm going to find reminders. Just to show folks that this works. Oh, that's calendar events. I wanted to find reminders. Perfect. And I am just going to set the list to be the personal list, which is the list that I've got open over here. And I will just say is not completed. Okay. And so then what I will just do, if I keep my, or I've got my repeat for my tags, but I will just repeat with each of the reminders first. So I will clean that out and select the reminders. And then I will set my second repeat item to not the repeat results, but I will set it to my split text. And then I will use the edit reminder option. And we'll just set that up and make sure that that's right. So we're going to set the tags of the reminder, okay, and our reminder, okay. It's a little difficult actually when you use the reminders picker inside of a shortcut editor. Okay, what I prefer to do is I prefer to tap on the select variable and then go back, okay. And because this first one is reminder, I need that first repeat item. And then I need to say what the text is, and it should, fingers crossed, maybe I just need to tap out and then tap back into that to say, there we go. I'm going to set it to, I will select the variable again, and then it's going to be repeat item 2. And now when I run this, it should, so I'm showing Mizzy, but that's a little weird. But it did do this right when I did it earlier. I suspect it actually may be that it's setting all of the tags as well. So you may actually find that instead of splitting your text and repeating, you can actually just keep those actions, and then you can just set it to all of the text. And then when I run it, I've got Micah and Mizzy, but if you probably just pop a comma in there, that should work as well. But it's very easy to get those two variables swapped around. Yeah, that's just something that can happen, unfortunately, relatively easily. But I suspect you will find a way of handling this. Yeah, now I've got just one text. I can tap on the plus and then I can add a value. This makes it more difficult to do dynamic options, unfortunately. But I'm sure you will figure out what that is. There we go. I figured out what the set option is for, folks. It's for adding. So there we go. You just need to change it to an add, and then you'll be able to make sure once you've got your variables in the right place that you can do exactly what you need there.
So set versus add, where then it will
because set will replace everything. Yep. It's one of those things where, it's sometimes like it used to work exactly like this, and it was working perfectly. And then there was an update at some point where they tweaked how it works to fix it. But everybody that set it up before obviously was working with it as it used to be. So
Adrian, seems like all you need to do is choose add instead of set, and you'll be well on your way.
Fingers crossed. Right, and then, if not, make sure that your variables are the right way around.
All right. The next bit of Adrian's response is the pet tax, sort of. Adrian writes, I live in a building associated with my work, so I'm not allowed to have pets, but we do have lots of pigeons in central London, and we get to know some of the ones who hang out on our windowsill. The picture, and we'll show the picture, is of the beautiful Stella. Stella has a twin sister who also visits us. They're pretty young and still squeak instead of coo. I think pigeons' voices break at around 8 to 12 weeks. Hello, Stella. Look at those beautiful
Stella
boys.
is rather gorgeous. Yeah. It's amazing. Some of the pigeons in central London are absolutely gorgeous, and some of them are very mangy looking, unfortunately. But clearly Stena is benefiting from Adrian's presence and, showing off her lovely plumage. So fingers crossed she moves on to cooing. The squawk of a pigeon can be quite loud first thing in the morning. So hopefully she's not your alarm clock, Adrian.
All right, moving along to feedback and questions. We've got a bit of help needed for Aaron. Aaron writes, "Hey, Micah and Rosemary. I use an Apple TV to watch Apple TV Plus shows, and when I get done watching an episode, I have to manually mark as watched. Is there a setting or something that will automatically mark them as watched? I only noticed that it does it on Apple TV Plus. The Netflix app I use also marks them as played. Any help would be appreciated if possible. Thanks, and Aaron." So, Aaron, I have to say this is something that I regularly experience as well. I found that it's not just Apple TV Plus, Hulu, and some of the other apps that integrate with Apple TV specifically and show up in that up next field, they also do this, whereas shows like the ones on Netflix don't. And that is because Netflix has a different bit of code for what counts as being watched versus what doesn't count as being watched. With Netflix, if you reach the end of the episode or very near the end of the episode, even before the credits start rolling, but certainly once the credits start rolling, then Netflix will mark that episode as watched. Versus Apple TV, where the app or the video that's served through Apple TV or the video that comes from a third-party platform that is served through Apple TV, it requires you to watch more than just that. So you have to watch nearly to the end in order for it to say that you have watched it. If you watch it till the end and then say the screen kind of like fades to black, but the captions haven't started rolling yet, or the captions just started rolling, it's not going to think that you have finished it. It's unfortunate. That's just the way that it is. Yeah. So you have to end up marking them as watched to get them to go away.
Yeah. This is something I find very annoying with services that aren't Netflix and Plex. Plex is very good at detecting intro credits and outro credits. And so when you get into the outro credits, it will detect it and zoom out so it can show you, the next episode. And if you, leave the episode during the end credits, then it just assumes that it marks it as watched, which is brilliant. And Netflix does exactly the same thing. And I just wish everything else did it. I Googled, I went through all the settings. I installed the beta Apple TV or tvOS to make sure that there was nothing in the future as far as we know it for you, Aaron. And I'm sorry, I couldn't find anything other than people saying you just have to watch the last few seconds of the show. If you scrub to the end, and just let it play out the last 3 to 5 seconds of the show, that will definitely mark it as watched. Yep. It's just a question of whether or not that's more or less work than just marking it as watched.
Right.
But I wish there was an easier solution. Apple, if anybody from Apple is listening and has the power to put feedback in the right place, please, for the love of God, outro detection. And just if somebody leaves within the 30 seconds before that or during that, just mark the thing as watched. It's fine. We don't have to watch the entire outro credits every time.
Please, I agree. All right, one more bit of feedback from Alan. Alan writes, "Dear Rosemary and Micah, thanks for covering the mysterious Bluetooth on the road issue." So you may remember that Alan had written in about trying to use Bluetooth in the car while on the road, and on specific highways, the Bluetooth was cutting out randomly, or, it wasn't random. It was every time between these periods of time. So Alan writes, "I recently got hearing aids that stream audio and phone calls via Bluetooth. The connection seems fine for phone calls, but is funky with streaming podcasts. Just moving my phone from the front to the rear pocket of my jeans affects the connection. Could this be caused by the podcast app, or is it strictly a Bluetooth issue and unfixable? Before I got my aids and upgraded the OS on my phone and watched to the latest, I had set things up so my phone would not ring when a call came in, but my watch would vibrate. But I don't remember the settings. My phone, as I remember, was not set to mute via the switch on the side. Since my aids and the OS update," and talking about hearing aids, "since my hearing aids and the OS update, I now hear the phone ringing in my hearing aids, and the phone itself also rings. I didn't realize the change until I was in the synagogue and my phone started started ringing. Very embarrassing. I can't figure out how to get it back to vibrating my watch, not ringing my phone, and not ringing in my ears, at least from the phone, as I have tinnitus, so I have natural ringing. Help, please. Thanks, Alan. So, Alan, the first part of your question about things going funky when you are streaming podcasts versus whenever you are doing phone calls. Multiple things here. It's important to note that most phone calls are coming through at a very low quality. If you're not using FaceTime audio or FaceTime video, if you're just using a standard phone call, the audio sort of stream is incredibly low quality, incredibly low bandwidth, incredibly low file size. It's everything that it possibly can do, super compressed so that the call doesn't drop. And so because of that, it is very easy for your phone and the connected devices that you have to be able to stream that signal, because it's almost trivial in the sense that it is just a very small file. There's not a whole lot to send. But anytime you switch from that to something like music, or in the case of podcasts, which are going to be treated like music, that is a much, let's go with like, the phone call is a super thin stream of water, and the podcast or audio is a much thicker stream of water, and so, or wider stream of water, however you want to put it. And so trying to get all of that data over to the hearing aids, when I presume they don't have like an antenna that sticks outside of your ear, and the fact that your phone is then on the other side of your body, it is trying to go through water and bone and all of the other things that make up our body to get to that device. And so it's just a lot to try to make it do. So it doesn't surprise me that you're getting that issue. I don't think it's the podcast app. I really do believe that this is a Bluetooth thing where it's a much more complicated file that needs to try to make its way to those hearing aids.
Yeah. Most podcasts and music are recorded in a much higher fidelity. So I know, for the podcast recording I do, we actually record, I'll record an hour and a half, and it'll be 500 megabytes or more for just the audio. That's not video, that's just the audio. And of course, this thing gets compressed and so on throughout the processing, but it's still going to be a much bigger file than what it is, when you get a phone call, because it's going over whatever networks. Even with Wi-Fi calling enabled, it will still be, much bigger. And I'm guessing the Bluetooth antenna in the hearing aids is probably not focusing on that. It's probably focusing on communicating between the two hearing aids so that you don't get something in one ear but not get it in the other, or get it in one ear and then long enough later that it confuses you, get it in the other ear. I know when I started podcasting and I actually looped it so that I get my own voice back into my ears, adjusting to that minor delay, which is purely local, was a bit of a head scratcher. So I can imagine that they're really focusing on trying to keep your ears in sync, which is the most important part. So unfortunately, I'm going to guess the solution to that one is going to be put your phone in your front pocket, as annoying as it is. But as far as the ringing goes, so that your ringtone just comes through on your Apple Watch, I think that is just a case of putting your phone on silent. I don't think that there is another trick to that, other than potentially poking around a bit more in the settings. But I believe as long as your phone is on silent, I say that with my phone pretty much living with the silent switch on. It almost never leaves it. But I always get it through on my watch, and it doesn't ring out loud. I think that that's all you're going to have to do there. You can, of course, in the settings under the sounds, it's just connected to my Mac Studio as a camera. That's a nice feature that I don't need. But if you pop into the settings and then you go into sounds and haptics, then of course you can do things like modify the ringtone volume, and you can actually change your ringtone. And if you scroll down, at least for messages, there is the option of no tone. For here, I'm actually not seeing a no tone option, which is a bit of a shame. I thought there was one.
Yeah, I thought there was a none.
Yeah, there certainly is for text tone. That's right at the top. It's the first alert tone, but I'm guessing that's not possible for phone calls as an option, unless you buy or install a phone ringtone that is just nothing. So it's silence, kind of like the a amazing song for CarPlay, when your device just starts playing the audio. But yeah, I would make sure that you just try putting your phone in silent, and make sure that you've checked what the haptic options there are, and check your watch settings too. But as far as I'm aware, your phone will always ring out loud if the silent switch is not on, regardless of other devices that are connected. Fingers crossed, putting it on silent will also stop it coming through in your hearing aids. If not, then I would double check with the hearing aid manufacturers to help fix that, because that sounds like a problem to me. But I do know that we've got quite a few listeners of the show who use hearing aids, including made for iPhone ones, which will connect to this. So if you are one of those listeners, folks, and you know about how this works, please do get in touch with us, and we will make sure to talk about that on the show and get Alan some feedback. So fingers crossed that there will be no more embarrassments in the synagogue or elsewhere for you, Alan. Hopefully we can get that fixed.
We will include a link in the show notes to a support guide regarding hearing devices. Thank you, ScooterX, in the chat. ScooterX says, if you have made for iPhone hearing aids that connect via accessibility, you go to Settings, Accessibility, Hearing Devices, and then you turn on Play Ringtones. That, of course, will then play the ringtone in the hearing aid. If you don't want it to play in the hearing aid, you would turn that off. If that plays on both, as in the sound plays on both, you just need to turn on that mute switch on your iPhone, so that it will only play in the ringtone, or only play rather in the hearing aids if you want it to. But yes, we will have a link for you in the show notes, Alan, to a guide within the iPhone for using those hearing devices as a third party. But yeah, I highly recommend using that mute switch on the side of the iPhone to correct this. If somehow you were able to get that working in previous versions, now I think your best bet is to use that switch on the side. All right, with that, it is time to move over to our app caps. It's time for our app caps, the part of the show where we pick either an app or gadget to share with all of you because we think it's great, or it could be new. It could be one that's been around for a long time. In any case, it's something that we think is awesome. And to honor it, we wear caps atop our heads. And although it is November 1st as we record this show, yesterday was spooky Halloween. So Rosemary and I chose some spooky hats. Rosemary Orchard, tell us about the cap atop your head and tell us about your app or gadget pick of the week.
Well, the cap atop my head is more of a hat than a cap, let's be honest. It's got a nice wide flat brim, and then in the center it goes up into a lovely point. It is, of course, black based, and yes, on top of it I will pop it in front of the camera for any folks who are watching. Look at that, it's got little silver cobwebs on it in a little print. It is, of course, a witch's hat. And the best part of it is it came from the dollar store or the pound store here in the UK at any rate. And it's a surprisingly great hat. I'm staying up very well. The point's not gone floppy as it often does on a witch's hat. But my app cap for this week, it's an unusual one for me because I'm honestly not a huge fan of Chrome, but this weekend, Chrome saved my bacon several times, as did Google Translate, actually, because I went to Stockholm for the weekend. And Stockholm is a lovely city, and pretty much everybody there that I ran into spoke English. But unfortunately, I did notice that a lot of websites didn't have an English option. And so I realized, unfortunately, the Translate app on iOS does not support Swedish. If the Translate app supports Swedish, then what you can do actually in Safari on your device is you can actually tap on the sort of AA and the symbol icon, and then there will be a translate option, and you can have something translated. There it is, translate, and you can say, translate it into this language. But if the Translate app doesn't support this, you're kind of out of luck. Unless you install Chrome, in which case it can auto-translate pages for you. So I set Chrome to automatically translate from Swedish to English without even asking me first. It's just going to do it for me, which meant that as I was going around places, opening up various websites and so on, it would just translate them into English for me. Of course, this particular website has an in English option, but when I was looking to try and go and get a massage somewhere, I was finding a lot of websites where the website was just in Swedish, and unfortunately, I don't speak Swedish, so unless it is hiss, which means lift or elevator. That's pretty much the only word I know, other than hey or hi. But the good news is I was able to get around just fine. And this and Google Translate with the Google Lens option, where you can, point your phone at something and it will translate the words that it's seeing, certainly were two tools which I will be keeping in my travel arsenal for future trips. So free to download on the App Store. It does use WebKit underneath, so it's actually using the same browser as Safari. But you could sync your bookmarks between Chrome on various devices if you wanted to. I just used Safari. I was using this purely because I get the translation option from it. I'm sure there are some other great features as well, but that's all I needed it for, and it certainly came in handy.
That is a really good tip. I love that. You use what tools are at your disposal. In this case, it was Chrome, and it worked for you. So, brava. This week, I am wearing a black bat, not a black cat, but a black bat atop my head. It's got wings, it's got bat ears, and it's got a goofy little bat face. And it's also very fuzzy, which is fun. So that is what's atop my head as I talk about my app cap this week, which is a new puzzle game in Apple Arcade called Stitch. And I say that with a full stop at the end of the word, Stitch. And so this app is a puzzle game that lets you create little embroidery art pieces. It's got like the embroider's hoop, and you go through and you create little bits of artwork using your stitches. So I'm going to hop into one that I have been working on. The puzzles come in multiple sizes, from extra small all the way up to, I believe, XL. And obviously the bigger the size, the longer you will be working on the puzzle. And then each of the hoops has a color around the outside, blue, green, yellow, and red, that corresponds to the level of difficulty of that puzzle. So I am working on a large puzzle that has a yellow circle around it, meaning that it has kind of a medium difficulty, or I guess they call it normal. So I'll tap play and you can kind of see how this works. So it zooms in on sections of the embroidery artwork, and there are numbers thrown throughout the puzzle. And these numbers represent how many squares need to be colored in with that specific color. And at the end, obviously, all of these squares need to be able to fit inside of the puzzle. So I'm going to go to the bottom left side, and you can see that at the bottom left, I've got on the far left a 5, in the middle, I've got a 2, and on the bottom, I've got a 3. So when I look at this puzzle, I know that 5 that's on the far left side, I cannot take and fill down, because if I try to fill down, I can only do 3. I can either go to the right, which has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cells, or up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cells right below that too. You kind of have to give it a go to understand the rules of how you can fill squares, because you can fill sort of diagonally from a spot, but it does it in such a way that multiple areas are filled in, or you can go in a line to the left, to the right, up or down. So in this case, that's why I know that the odd numbers are never going to be filled diagonally, because I would have to fill an even number of squares versus being filled in a line like so. So first I'll try and go to the right. And now what I have left are a 2 and a 3. And I can only take the 3 to the left, because if I tried to go up, there's not enough space for me to go 3 spots. So I'll go to the left, but now I've got a problem, because I can either fill to the left with a 2 or fill to the right with a 2, and there's an open square that I can't do. So that tells me that there are Well, okay. So I was going to say there are only two places, or there's only one other place that the 5 can go. It can go up, but that's not true because, and here's the other catch, you just have to have that number somewhere within those 5 or 3 or whatever number it is cells. So the 5 could technically go like this, where I filled all the way up to the 2, or it could go 1 down, or it could go 2 down from there. It could be any number of these. So I'm going to leave it where it's all the way down. And instead, I'm going to take the 3 on the bottom and go up, the 2 on the bottom and go down. And then we'll do the 4 up from there. But if you see now, I know that that doesn't work because if I take the 2 down, then I've got an open spot. So instead, I'm going to take this 5 and shift it up 1. I'll take the 2 down again. And this time, I'm going to take the 3 to the side, the 2 to that side. I know that these 4 are going to make the green here. And I'm guessing that this is going to be the 9 here, the 4 at the top, the 5. And see, now I know that that can't be accurate because this 6 needs to be able to fill that way. And so then I know that that's not the case because the 5 needs a place to go. So the 5 could go up like that. But now the 4 doesn't have a place to go. So now you start to see how difficult this can become as you're trying to fill this out. So let's see if we can't figure out a different way of doing. Let's try 6, 4. There we go. 5 and 4. Now I filled out that section. And it moves on to the next part. Ultimately, what this is going to turn into is a hamburger, but I will show you one of the puzzles that I've completed in the past. This is an owl, for example. And after you've created a puzzle, you can go in and do what's called free stitch, which is where you get to choose to fill in the colors of the puzzle exactly as you would like to. So I can go in and design this owl with different colors, and then I can share. After I've completed a puzzle, I can share it in its final form or share it specifically in a design that I make. And there are little challenges that take place throughout the whole game. So right now, for example, I need to complete 2 hoops from the food and drinks category. I already did one, which was French press coffee, or actually that might be tea. And I'm working on the hamburger right now so that I can get that challenge reward. And then it just adds up to give you kind of a higher score. This game does integrate with Game Center, so you can kind of challenge your friends. And here you can see this snail that I designed myself with the pink shell as opposed to the one that came with it, which had like a brown shell, as well as a maple leaf from, assuming, Canada. And some of the kind of larger, this was one of the larger puzzles that I worked on, Gulliver's Travels Publication Day. It was a hard puzzle and it was extra large. So it took quite a while. 2,994 cells I filled in that one. But there are a bunch of different categories, including, look, there's a little sloth. And retro, games and hobbies, food and drinks, abstract, outdoors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have found this game to be incredibly delightful. It is absolutely kind of an idle game. I'll just pick it up while I'm, if there's something on the TV that's not particularly interesting, or I'm listening to an audiobook in particular, then I will play this game while I'm doing so. And it just kind of fills that spot. But I think so much fun. Available as part of an Apple Arcade subscription. This is Stitch, and that's Stitch, period. And you'll see a cute little penguin on the cover of it. With that, we have reached the end of this episode of iOS Today, which means it's time to say goodbye. If you have questions, feedback, concerns, etc., send those to iostoday@twit.tv. You can watch this show live as we record it every Tuesday. That's at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific at twit.tv/iOS. By going there, you can check out, twit.tv/live. That's where you can go to watch the show live as we record it. If you want the show after it's all done, we think that's the best way. Go to twit.tv/iOS. There, you will find links to subscribe to the audio version of the show or the video version of the show. Very simple to do. And get the podcast delivered directly to your doorstep. And by doorstep, I mean the podcast listening app of your choice. This is a great time to mention Club Twit. If you'd like to see Twit continue keeping on, well, become a member of the club, because by doing that, you are supporting us directly. And we want to give you something in return. So when you become a member of the club by going to twit.tv/clubtwit and subscribing for $7 a month or $84 a year, you will become a member and you will get access to every single Twitch show with no ads because you are now the one that's supporting the show directly, as well as access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, and access to the members only Discord server. That is a place where you can go to chat with your fellow Club Twit members and also those of us here at Twit. And I should mention too, that we just keep adding more and more to Club Twit. So along with those, you also get access to the Untitled Linux Show, which is a show, as you might imagine, all about Linux, access to Hands on Windows, which is Paul Thurrott's show about Windows tips and tricks, and access to my show, which is Hands on Mac, a show that's about all of your Apple devices, not just the Mac, but Mac included. Those are short format shows that let you kind of learn things quick and easy and make sure you're making the most of those devices. All right, Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow you online and check out all of your great work, where should they go to do so?
The best place to go is rosemaryorchard.com, which has links to all the things I do online, including back to this podcast and some other podcasts. And of course, you can also find me on social media on micro.blog and Twitter with the username Rosemary Orchard and hanging out in that Club Twit Discord in the iOS Today channel. What about you, Micah?
I am at Micah Sargent on many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. Thank you for watching. Hope that you found some fun new idle apps and games to check out, or maybe you were reminded of some that were out there that you haven't tried in a while. In any case, tell us which idle apps and games you use or you have found. We'd love to hear about that. And we will see you next week for another episode of iOS Today. Goodbye.
Hey, I'm Rod Pyle, Editor-in-Chief of Ad Astra Magazine, and each week I join with my co-host to bring you This Week in Space, the latest and greatest news from the final frontier. We talk to NASA chiefs, space scientists, engineers, educators, and artists, and sometimes we just shoot the breeze over what's hot and what's not in space, books, and TV. And we do it all for you, our fellow true believers. So whether you're an armchair adventurer or waiting for your turn to grab a slot in Elon's Mars rocket, join us on This Week in Space and be part of the greatest adventure of all time.